say good morning. Seems I've drawn the attention of a law student, or maybe he's a lawyer, I don't know. I find it interesting how when I ask him what the Constitution is and how it applies, he says, well, the Constitution is just that, it's a constitution. Well, that's very vague and ambiguous. So, there's only two things that Constitution can be. Two. It is either a trust, and the reason I've drawn to that conclusion is because of the preamble, which he states the preamble is not law. Of course it's not law. However, if it was the intent of the testators when they created the document, and the Constitution is in fact a trust indenture, making it the law of the trust, and it qualifies because it has multiple signatures stating its intent on behalf of the people, which makes sense and resonates with me, it can be a trust, and therefore it can apply to the beneficiaries who don't necessarily have to know they're the beneficiaries of a trust. Alright? So just to state that, well, very vague and ambiguously, that the Constitution is just that, it's a constitution. There's nothing to it. And the other option is that the Constitution is a commercial charter, which means that the contract died when the people who created it died. The contract died with them. So if the Constitution no longer applies and people are using it, it's really futile because you're not a signator to the contract. And I just find it funny when lawyers get on there and say, you know, it doesn't work like you think it works, Derek. I went to law school. Ah, you went to a school that was designed to conform to the banking system, and you believe every bit of bullshit you were taught in that school. Remember, the victors of war are the ones who write the history. And the Rothschilds once said, we care not who makes your laws so long as we're in control of making the money. Basically means he who has the gold makes the rules, meaning that the gold has been removed. He who creates the fiat can buy everybody out. Doesn't matter what the fuck you pass. If you've got enough coin, no pun intended, you can pretty much subvert everything. The lawyering craft is built upon lies and manipulation of language to convince others that they're correct. They're bullshit artists. Point blank fucking simple. It don't get any better than that. So, I just find it hilarious that this man can't answer the question. Is it a trust? Is it a trust indenture? Or is it a commercial contract? And those are very, very important questions to be answered. Especially from a guy who proclaims to know the law. Because there's only two competing realms. Public and private. That's it. And if I didn't enter into a commercial agreement, I'm not bound by it. And if it's a trust, well, then the agents and agency are trustees, which we clearly see articulated in 63 Charlie M Jurisprudence 2D, that all agents and agency are, in fact, trustees of the people. All right? So, when I look at it and I assess the situation, because I come across a lot of these lawyers, and I find it funny because the first thing they do when they can't answer the questions is they go to slander and defamation of character. Now, he's made a valid point. I didn't read the actual case law of one of the posts that I posted. It's found in other literature, of course. And if I simply take away the case site off the bottom of it, any reasonable, prudent man would understand that the statement is factual. So the case site may be incorrect, but the language within the statement is correct. There are no judges, because judges don't enforce statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, and regulations. That's an administrator's job. That's what a ministerial administrator does, administering a bankruptcy on behalf of the IMF. Black's Law Dictionary clearly outlines, circular in nature, by the way, that a judge is a banker and the bench is a bank. And if you go look up bench in Black's Law Dictionary, it says bank. And if you go look up bank, it says bench. So it's circular in nature. That's legal speak right there for you. Keep people chasing their fucking tail. Vague and ambiguous statements never really going anywhere. It's circular in logic and in nature. So there were some more questions that came about. If the Constitution is a commercial charter, then how am I bound by it? When did I knowingly, willingly, and intentionally enter into that contract? I didn't. Okay? Which would mean that if it's just a commercial contract and people are using it as agents and agency, they're bound by it, not me. Which leads me to believe that it's still a trust because of the way that it's being utilized. They take an oath to it, right? To uphold it. Then the discussion was a turnabout on the whether or not the United States is a corporation. That's well settled. It's upheld in multiple Supreme Court cases. It's upheld in Title 28 U.S.C. 3002-15A. It's upheld by public law. I couldn't be any more clear. And I present that information telling you, oh, you just don't know law. And he wants to go into Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. Well, welcome to the big show. I like that shit. Because Article 1, Clause 8, Section 17 does not supersede Article 1, Section 9. Or Article 1, Section 10. Alright? Article 1, Section 9, and Section 10 are very rarely spoken of, and they are one of your best friends. He proclaims to exclaim that the United States is not a corporation, and it's not foreign, and there's duality in sovereignty. Duality in sovereignty, huh? Well, in a one-dimensional world, when this theory of the United States being a country, when you look at it and you analyze it, and they say that a thing has sovereignty. First of all, a thing can't have sovereignty. A living, sentient being and soul, identified as man, mind, body, spirit, soul, vessel, all right, has sovereignty. A thing, a corporation, something without free will, a free thought, a heartbeat, a pulse, empathy, apathy, you name it, cannot have sovereignty. So, when you say duality of sovereignty, first of all, it would have to be something that has a soul. It would have to be something that's alive, not a corpse. Corpses do not have sovereignty. People in the ground that have been deceased, their vessels don't have sovereignty. All right? It's a living, sentient soul and being that has sovereignty. And we have that sovereignty because of our Heavenly Father. Thinking about how this whole thing plays out, I just find it funny to the fact that when people go to law school, it's almost like they're in a trance. They can't see anything outside of what they've been taught, which is nothing more than modes and procedures. They were never taught law in fucking law school. You know, I talked to another lawyer and he laughed at the idea of the Constitution. He said, yeah, we do a light brief about the Constitution, but that's really not what it's about. I said, yeah, I know what it's about. It's about business, baby. It's about blind adhesion contracts. It's about being dubious and getting people to enter into contracts with the manipulation of language and getting them to succumb to your jurisdiction. You said, yep, you're right. So it brings to mind the Foreign Registration Act. People don't understand why it's so important. Well, it identifies the foreigners on our land under military occupation, controlling the narrative. You see, the United States can't own land. Land is not real estate and property. Real estate and property is an overlay over the land, where they turn around, the occupier lays an overlay over the United States of America called the United States and its territories in the form of lot, block, parcel ID number, zone improvement project number, and easement. I'm going to tell you right now, if you remove the lot, block, parcel ID number, zone improvement project number, and easements from your land, these fucking cretins can't even step on the son of a bitch. Not without your express written consent. It's trespass to the highest degree, and the DOD will actually defend and protect your unalienable rights to live peacefully and enjoy prosperity. And they don't get a hold of the marshals. They get a hold of the provost marshal, part of the military, part of the army, and he comes down and kicks the fuckers off your property and arrests them if need be because they're engaged in mixed war against the Constitution. All these lawyers are involved in mixed war against the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen. That's what they do. Period. Corpus Juris Secundum, Volume 7, Subsection 4 clearly outlines that they have a conflict of interest, a perpetual conflict of interest, mind you, because they have an oath and allegiance, first and foremost, to the crown, then to the court, then to the interest of justice, what they perceive to be justice, and then to the client. If anyone should ever come into conflict with that, if there should be a conflict that arises, the former must yield to the latter, meaning they must take care of the prior oaths that they took. These lawyers all tell me, oh, we didn't take an oath to the Bar Association or London Crown, Derek. You might want to go read your paperwork again, Scooter, because you absolutely have an allegiance to a foreign entity. Now, let's talk about the states. State of is the United States. I don't care how you slice it and dice it. You can call it a subsidiary corporation of the United States, but it all boils down to being part of the United States. So, the state of Nebraska, state of Texas, state of Louisiana, it doesn't matter. They're all the United States. All the suits are brought on behalf of the United States. In any state that you're in, it doesn't fucking matter. It's a RICO racketeering scheme in most instances. I like these lawyers that like to weigh in on the Constitution as though, you know, it does have force and effect if you know how to use it, as though I'm fucking ignorant to the facts. And yet when you get into court and you never hear a lawyer, not a fucking one of them, going, hey, the client has a right to depose the claimant, the witness with first-hand knowledge claiming harm, damage, or loss. They'll never do that. Why? Because they're not in that venue. Alright? They're not in that jurisdiction. They're in a foreign jurisdiction. Period. And they're trying to ensnare you and draw you into it so they can attach themselves to your estate. So they can create more credits on account. Bolster their retirement. Bolster their CAFR funds. Bolster the profits of the principal based upon your ignorance. If prosecuting attorneys are not working on a foreign principal or on behalf of a foreign principal, can one of you attorneys out there enlighten me on why every last state sigil that you operate with is registered in Canada? If it's really not foreign to the United States of America and to the people of America, then show me or explain to me why you are operating under a sigil that's registered in another land, another nation. And explain to me how you're not working for a foreign principal when the sigil, the seal of that state is registered in Canada. Which is all the more evidence why you are to register with the Foreign Registration Act and be compliant with it. Unfortunately, there's only 4 agents in the DOJ that actually take interest in the Foreign Registration Act. And although the Congress has had a debate about it, the Senate has had a debate about it as well, as to why it's not being enforced if it's the law. If it's the law, why aren't they enforcing it? How come we don't have people enforcing that? Well, back in the 50s, I believe it was the Senate, did an investigation into the Bar Association, all right? And what they conclusively found, and if you want to take it up with me, it's to no avail because I didn't do the research. I didn't go into it. So if you want to argue with somebody about it, go argue with those guys that came up with the findings and go argue your points with them and let me know how you pan out. But it was conclusively determined that the Bar Association lawyers are part of the Communist Party. They advocate for the Communist Party. They continue to defend the Communist parties that are hell-bent on destroying the American way of life. I don't know if it's a jealousy thing, a control thing, what the fuck it is. But nevertheless, that's fact. Every case must be independently bonded. I don't ever see any cases that are independently bonded. Ever. Not by the alleged plaintiff bringing the claim. Because a plaintiff is nothing more than a fiction. Alright? Witnesses, that's another fictional term. You have a man that either has first-hand knowledge or you don't. A witness is a fiction. And that's how they're duping everybody. By playing around in this magical land where words they have ulterior meaning than what you believe or know to be true. It's not common, the language they use. So, for all you lawyers out there that believe in your heart of hearts through law school that you're not working on behalf of a foreign principal corporation, just prove it to me. Show me where I'm flawed in my research. I welcome it. I welcome it because I am an open book. I am more than willing to admit, hey, I diagnosed this improperly. So for you lawyers out there, is the Constitution a commercial charter or is it a fucking trust? The preamble would lead me to believe it's a trust. And the way that you guys articulate that it applies to people would insinuate it's a trust. The Founding Fathers were pretty clear in the preamble what the Constitution was needed for. If it's not, well, then obviously the Constitution is nothing more than a vessel for transporting debt and assets, which becomes abundantly clear when you look up the word constitutor, and the very definition of the word constitutor is to roll debt over from one entity to another. If it's not a corporation and it is in fact government that you're working for, how in the fuck is it insolvent? The principal you work for, how is it insolvent? How is it bankrupt if it's not a corporation? If your courts are actually true constitutional courts, which they're not, why is it the bastard in a black robe sits on the bench and says, if you bring up the Constitution again, I'll throw you in contempt of court? Huh? Yeah. They're not constitutional courts. So you guys, you lawyers, you can blow smoke up people's ass all fucking day long because that's what you're trained to do, is huff and puff and blow smoke up people's asses. But it won't be much longer. And there'll be a day you won't be able to walk down a fucking street without being fearful of being hung up from a fucking light pole. It's coming. You guys in the lawyering craft extort people for victimless crimes. You take people's offspring from them and have no business doing it, which constitutes alienation of affection, theft by taking, false and misleading statements, unsworn pleadings being used to do so, all hearsay, all bullshit. And there's a day coming, and it's going to be a real cutthroat fucking bloody day for you people. It is fucking coming. You guys think Russia and Ukraine's a big deal? Wait till the American people wake from their fucking slumber and realize how bad they've been fist fucked in the ass. Just wait. That day's a coming, and I'm fucking gonna relish in every fucking moment of it. There are lawyers out there that I know. I know them personally, on a personal level. And on a personal level, I believe them to be good men. And women. I know a couple of women lawyers as well. The issue becomes their morality. Where has it gone? They sold their soul to turn a buck. And that piece of paper, that credit on account, actually has no intrinsic value at all. So you literally sell your souls for fucking nothing. Instruments of debt. It's just wild to me. It's extraordinarily wild. You can't hire a lawyer ever, if you intend on standing upon your rights. You absolutely cannot challenge the jurisdiction the moment you hire a lawyer. Judges, furthermore, instead of dismissing cases, and again, they're not judges, they're ministerial administrators, instead of dismissing cases like they should be, would rather force an attorney onto somebody, all right, and then proclaim, as they read it onto the record, that the defendant pled not guilty, practicing law from the bench at their private, ad hoc, for-profit corporation courts where they act as a banker administrating a bankruptcy for a commercial entity that is insolvent. Period. All you lawyers out there, show me I'm fucking wrong. I love being wrong. I fucking love being wrong. It actually tickles me pink when I'm wrong, because I tend to look at things in the worst case scenario. But as of today, in the last 12 years, I have never had a lawyer been able to prove, with a finding of facts and conclusion of law and the evidence in support, that I am wrong. In fact, they all just turn around and walk the fuck away. I've not even had one attempt to show me to the contrary. Not even fucking close. In fact, the closest I ever got was a lawyer that sat down with me in his office and he said, "Derek, I'm going to tell you something right now. Please keep my name out of this." I said, "Okay, I can do that. I'm an honorable man. I'll keep your name out of my mouth. I'll never publish it. As far as being your name involved with it." He said, "It's all smoke and mirrors, Derek. It's 180 degrees backwards, and we use manipulation of language to ensnare people in order to unjustly enrich ourselves. That's a fact. But please don't ever come back to my office again. Please don't ever come back here. You're not welcome here anymore." And I said, "Well, what about your children? You know, what do you mean? Don't you feel like standing up and fighting for them? I mean, what if they're not lawyers, judges, or sheriffs? What if they're not politically affiliated and have this extra protection as a first-class citizen versus being a serf and a second-class citizen, as the bar attorneys believe is truth and fact? How about that?" Well, Derek, if I stood up with you and I went against the grain, many lawyers have been made examples of, some of them being cast into prison, and they will take everything from me. And I'm not willing to lose everything. So you sold your soul for materialistic shit, yet again, and you sell your offspring down the river to be fucking enslaved in the future by tyrannical piles of shit. Eric, we're not going to talk about this anymore. You know, and I appreciate it, don't contact me anymore. I can appreciate his honesty. But the fact that, after having a conversation like that, they can't even look you in the fucking eyes anymore. Because they know what they're doing. He's admitted to it. He's realized the truth. He told me, in fact, Derek, I came to this conclusion about the time I was your age of what I was really doing. What would you have me do? I was in debt with law school debt. I had my first house. I had a wife and a kid. What was I supposed to do? Throw it all in the trash and fucking go flip burgers and make next to nothing and try and dig myself out of it? Your plight isn't with me, good sir. It doesn't matter what you say to me. I'm not the one ultimately that passes judgment at the end of the day. That's between you and the Heavenly Father. That ain't got a damn thing to do with me. There isn't a lawyer out there that can honestly look you in the fucking face and tell you that he fought with vigor for your rights to be protected. Not one. And there's not a lawyer out there that's going to show you the contract. So I'm going to tell you what the contract is. The contractual nexus that draws you guys into those jurisdictions, that starts with the application for school and the misleading, falsified, incorrect record that is generated. Because you see, the Article 1, Section 8 courts, they don't have any jurisdiction over man. They only have jurisdiction over contracts, entities, period. Period. What am I talking about? The date of birth, the date of your nativity, is not the same as the entity, ladies and gentlemen. The entity that was created with the all capital letter name, I don't give a fuck if they articulate it first name, middle initial, last name, or first name, last name, it doesn't matter to me. It's in all capital letters, and that is the entity. So you got to correct the record with the school system. You got to correct the record with the fucking DMV, and the DMV is a private for-profit corporation, all right? And they're in bed with the state, whereas they sell your private intellectual information to the municipalities, the counties, the police departments, and that's how they're generating revenue, through the contract. It's a con that's got you on a track to be a slave, not just for today, but for the rest of the entirety of your fucking life. How do you fix it? Well, a simple correction of the record has come to my attention. There's an egregious error in the record. There's a record being kept in error, whereas the date of birth is incorrect on all these applications. Every record that is being kept purportedly on you, which is really the estate, is a record that is being kept in error and needs corrected. And when you put these people on notice to correct the record to ensure that you aren't caused any harm, damage, or loss, once you put them on notice that you're doing this, and you let them know that if they don't correct the record that they're keeping in error and it causes you any harm, damage, or loss, they carry the primary active degree of fault for any harm, damage, and loss you may sustain by their agents and agency and the record they maintain. Because the DMV sells that record to the courts, sells that record to the forward. Yeah. Sells that record to the sheriff's department, and they're making money off your private intellectual property without ever divulging that to you. But it doesn't matter because all of it is kept in error. The record is in error. So you have to notify all these people. People are going, well, what is the correct date? It's the date of registration of the entity, ladies and gentlemen. If you've been paying attention and following along, it took a long time. It's the date of registration. For that, the state registrar is the chief probate officer who creates estates. All right? And that estate has a birth date. So when you put on your driver's license application, a birth date, it ties that birth date to the all capital letter fucking name creating joinder. So when you go into a court and they say name, birth date, that's all they need to utilize that presumption and assumption that you are the surety they're looking for. You couldn't possibly be the beneficiary because you don't have the right combination to open Pandora's box. You're using a record that is kept in error due to your ignorance. So you write these people and tell them to correct the record because they're keeping a record in error, and you're the only one that can testify with firsthand knowledge that this is true. No agent and agency can testify to the contrary, okay? They're not going to do it because they don't have any firsthand knowledge of the facts. Well, what evidence do you have to prove that what I am saying is correct? Go pull out your birth certificates. And they're not your birth certificates. Go pull out the certificate of indebtedness, the birth certificate, all right? And look at it. This child and the child are two different things. And the dates, on the one from Arizona, there are 4 dates on it. Date received, date registered, filing date, and birth date on there. It is the date that is registered that belongs on the contracts. And that's what they're doing to create joinder. And if you do this, and you get pulled over by a gun-toting moron after the fact, you have a right of claim for a trespass causing you harm because you followed due process of law and you gave them notice of the record they're keeping in error that is, do, and does cause you harm. I hope that makes sense. Can't make it any more fucking clear than that. And then you can tell these lying, looting, pandering piece of shit lawyers to go fuck themselves. Here's another thing I like about lawyers. Oh, well, Derek, if you're on a joint tenancy deed or a warranty deed and then you own the property. Boy, you went to law school, huh? Yup, sure did. Great. Can you explain to me the unlawful and illegal conversion of one's good name and why it is not on the document as it's supposed to be, on the warranty deed, the joint tenancy deed? Why is it an all capital letter disfigured combobulation of the true and correct Christian appellation? And if, furthermore, I am the owner, why the fuck does it say I'm a tenant? There's a record being kept in error, isn't there? That record, they, without your permission, converted the transfer of the real estate and property to an entity without your authority. Who colored them with authority to do that? And the lawyers like to argue, oh, that's bullshit. Oh, well, that's funny because the law is specific. So why the unlawful and illegal conversion from a proper name under the Real ID Act, a proper full name, to a nom de guerre name of war that is kept in error? You'll see that a lot of times on your warranty deeds, tenancy deeds, things of that nature, it'll be first name, middle initial, last name. That's not a full legal name, ladies and gentlemen. So what you can do when they do something like that, if they don't want to correct the record, which they're supposed to, you could go by the assumed business name for that warranty deed and tie that warranty deed or joint tenancy deed or trust deed to a assumed business name. And now you control it. Now it's not abandoned real estate and property just floating around out there in the abyss for lying, looting, pandering piece of shit lawyers to latch onto and to feed off of like fucking the parasites they are. And you can remove the lot, block, and parcel ID number, because you can take that lot, block, parcel ID number and tie it to the assumed business name and move it to a fucking P.O. box and then tell the municipality, That's where they can find their lot, block, parcel ID number, zone improvement project number, and easements. So with that said, that's my rant this morning for the lying, looting, pandering piece of shit Lawyer and Kraft, who perpetuate somehow that they enforce the law. And Derek, rest assured, we know the law. Well, if you know the law so well, how is it you're all allowing people to be extorted using false and fictitious statements, using false and fictitious names, not being properly identified in order to even have jurisdiction in the court? All parties must be properly identified. Okay, fine. You're representing the state of. I get it. Okay, cool. You're representing the state of. All you need to do is show me power of attorney, your warrant of attorney, and the contract between you and the principal you're working for. But you can't do that, can you? Because you don't have a fucking client, do you? Pretty simple. Pretty cut and fucking dry. Pretty cut and dry. So, with that said, I love you guys. That's my rant for today. I hope this helps you guys out. Remember, when a pandering piece of shit lawyer tries to convince you that you don't know what you're talking about, but they play word salad with you and twist and manipulate the language, all while not providing any factual evidence or proof, you can pretty much just dismiss what they're doing. They believe in their head that what they're doing is correct. I can tell you right now, in most instances, it's absolutely unlawful, and they'll tell you, well, statute provides. You can blow statute out your ass. It don't fucking apply to me. There's a difference between wrong and right, and you're clearly in the wrong, especially representing an entity trying to bring a claim against a man while running an artifice or a scheme in order to unjustly enrich yourself and justify what you're doing so you can sleep at night. And with that said, I love you. We'll talk to you soon.